ask you about something else that's happening in politics here. The Labour Party, for the last few years, has made a lot of play of misdemeanours or bad standards or bad behaviour in the Conservative Party. What are our viewers meant to think when they see that the Prime Minister didn't declare outfits that were given to his wife by a wealthy donor properly? What are they meant to think of that?
Well, look, I would say to them that the Prime Minister did declare funds that he received from Lord Alley. He's then gone back to the Parliamentary Commissioner to further check details on some of those funds that have made their way to his wife. So he has done that, and he is seeking to comply with the rules. So
I couldn't give two shits, a single solitary shit even, whether or not the rules have been followed. The issue here is, do you think it is ethical, even outside of ethics, do you think it's good optics for the Prime Minister, who's on a salary of £160,000 a year, should be getting schmoozed by Labour millionaire lords by buying them clothes, or by also getting gifts from loads of other places, such as hospitality from Google, or access to football boxes, or being given tickets to music festivals from tech giants, right? Do you think that that is, first of all, do you think it's optically good for these people to be allowed to just kind of swim in freebies like Scrooge McDuck diving into the pile of dollar coins? Or do you actually maybe think that if you've got all of that money that the state pays you, that the public money that you get paid for your job as the role of Prime Minister, that maybe if you really want your wife to have nice dresses, you should be able to pay that out of your own salary, rather than have what is essentially Keir Starmer sugar daddy? I think the main point that was being put about the Conservative Party being in hock with the rich people isn't necessarily that makes them evil or bad or they've broken the rules. It was that they're out of touch. It is that these people, they don't live normal people's lives. They spend their entirety of their existence, especially as politicians, just having black tie dinners, drinking champagne with the richest people in the world, and they do not know what it's like for normal people. And does not sound even more ridiculous that a knight of the realm, as leader of Party of Working People, as described in Labour Party's Twitter bio, for example, on £160,000 a year, getting financial hand shandies from millionaires, going off to do like shopping trips for his wife. Isn't this embarrassing to you?
It's ridiculous. I thought, given how strongly they played on the ending Tory corruption thing, that they'd keep it in their pants for 5 minutes. But literally from the get-go, before like he'd even really become Prime Minister, or, well, technically he was Prime Minister, but before he'd been in Parliament properly or anything like that, he was already having this guy given access to Downing Street. He was already having political appointments to supposedly non-political roles in the civil service. He's obviously being bought and paid for left, right and centre with all of this. It's so blatant to the very core of what they are is corrupt and self-serving. And I genuinely didn't think it would take this little amount of time for that to come to the fore. I thought they'd be able to hide it a lot better than this. And the fact that the excuses are being made here that, well, he doesn't necessarily have the money to do this. Motherfucker, you get paid a salary. So we know that you're actually quite a wealthy man. And it's especially galling that a man who's saying that we need to live inside of our means, that we need to freeze pensioners in order that Britain can balance the books. And yet he's not balancing his own books. The one area where apparently you don't have to live with inside your means is his means.
They have. And there was even an article in The Guardian that said that they had heard from a source of a long-time kind of Labour Party bigwig scoffing at the idea that this wasn't the thing that you just did. What, were you saying it's bad that we just stuff our cronies everywhere? You're supposed to stuff the cronies everywhere. Why is everyone getting mad? You attacked the Tories over this. People are getting mad over this because your political position was to say that this was undermining the political process, doing the cronyism with the political appointments, with the Lord's appointments, with the people who donate all of this money. Again, like all of the hay made over Boris Johnson's wallpaper, whilst of course is showing the kind of level to which he was out of touch with regular people, but it is 0% different between the Boris Johnson wallpaper and the Keir Starmer's wife being bought dresses. And the Liberals, they will not do the same criticism to both. They will not levy the same criticisms because Boris Johnson is the floppy hair Brexit bad man and Keir Starmer is Mr. Rules, which is what he called himself in the run-up to the election.
He's a sensible. The sensibles are back in charge. And now it's proper corruption, not bad corruption.
It's the most dangerous part of all of this, is that the iconoclastic ascendant figure in UK politics at the moment is Nigel Farage, right? The man who paints himself himself as being different to everybody else in terms of the politicians that everybody is sick of. Everyone's sick of politicians. Trust is an all-time low. Nigel Farage is the iconoclast challenging the elitists from the outside, just like Trump did in 2016 in the American election, by saying, well, they are all the same and I am different because I'm charismatic and I speak my mind. The one attack line that you should have on Nigel Farage is that he's bought out. He's bought out by big business interests, by the property industry, by rich motherfuckers who finance Reform UK as a political outfit because they've not got any members as much as any other party does. They're financed by big business. But your criticisms of Nigel Farage for being that, which is the only criticism that you can have about his conduct, is completely neutralised when the Labour right act in the identical way. You have zero moral high ground to attack the person who you need to beat at the next election, because mark my words, it'll be Farage and not Tom Tugendhat or Robert Jenrick that you should be worried about. And this is opening the door for the ascendancy of Farageism into UK politics. That's dangerous.
Oh, very much so. Very much so. And yeah, like you say, I don't care if the rules have been broken. The rules are obviously bullshit. If this falls within the rules are wrong. Not that you're in the right for following the rules. The rules are shit. They are at best insufficient and at worst a ticket to Corruptville, obviously.
Especially when it comes to conflicts of interest. Like, the way in which we deal with conflicts of interest is we don't scrutinise what that conflict of interest is. You just declare that it exists, and then we ignore it.
Yeah.
You add it to your ministerial or your members' declarations, your list of potential conflicts of interest, and then it never gets scrutinised. Oh, you've declared it, that's the rules. But we're not going to talk about what that would mean in terms of how you set policy. We won't discuss how that might mean that the person who's donating you might want a return on their investment. No, we just say, well, they've declared it, that's within the rules, let's move on. It's a ridiculous system. It's absolutely ridiculous.
What are these people getting back? Because presumably they're not doing this out of the goodness of their own heart. What is it they want for that money? That's exactly what you need to answer.
He is attempting to be transparent. The truth is, in our system, I've just come back from the United States, where US
you should have mentioned,
and first ladies have a huge budget paid for by the taxpayer so that they look their best on behalf of the US people. We don't have that system over here. The truth is that successive...
So in an era where we're having to freeze pensioners, you're arguing we should have state-funded dresses for his missus?
His argument is that we should nationalise the wardrobes of our elected officials. I mean, I've heard of champagne socialism, right? But one of the biggest criticisms that socialists get is that, oh, well, the rulers live in the palaces and then everybody else gets nothing, which is, of course, capitalism. But if you looked at, say, for example, the difference between the living conditions in the Kremlin and in Magnitogorsk in the Soviet Union, right? That's a legitimate criticism of the way in which the Soviet structure was set up, a very legitimate one. And, of course, the biggest way you should dispel that is by talking about the devolution of power towards workers, which is what I would term as the kind of socialism that I want to see. And yet you have the quote-unquote Democratic Socialist Party representative here, not that he is one, but it's what the party is in its own mission statement, saying, well, actually, our elected representative should be able to take your money to dress ourselves. And so in lieu of that, we're going to have to get rich people to be sugar daddies for us instead.
Yeah, unbelievable. So privatise the NHS, nationalise the Prime Minister's suits.
Prime ministers, unless you're a billionaire like the last one, do rely on donations, political donations, so they can look their best, both in the hope of representing the country if you're in the opposition, or indeed as Prime Minister. That's the situation.
But with respect, the Starmers aren't exactly broke. I mean, he had big senior jobs and paid very well as Prime Minister.
I'm not suggesting the Prime Minister is broke, and of course we can have that debate. But the point is this, that successive Prime Ministers want to look their best and their partners for the country. That is what lies behind this.
And you wouldn't mind, but his missus doesn't do anything either. When you say look at best, what, she appears on camera once a month? Well, they can't afford one dress.
They do a Christmas card together where they artificially make him taller. That's a thing that happens. But like, he spent like £50,000 on clothes. You don't need to spend £50,000 to look good.
No.
Right. Your average guy on like a night out or like going to a fancy restaurant can scrub up excellently fit to be the leader of the country in terms of how far you scrub it. Scrubbing up as a bloke, especially, that is not a difficult thing to do.
No.
And neither is it expensive. You can go down to not the most expensive place in town and get reasonable tailoring and not an expensive price, right? Even the Prime Minister of this country does not need to spend £50,000 on clothes. I'm sorry, this is nonsense.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Lord Ali is a long-standing peer. He's been in the House of Lords for well over 2 decades, and he's probably the most long-standing donor of the Labour Party. His politics are clear. Everyone knows him in Westminster, and he has. And we thank him for the work that he continues to do on behalf of our party.
Okay, David Lammy, there's so much we'd like to talk to you about. I know you're going to China later in the year, so it'd be great, perhaps, when you go on that trip, if you come back and talk to us about that. But thank you very much indeed for coming in this morning.
Hey there, if you enjoyed the video, make sure that you like and leave a comment. That helps the video out in the algorithm. If you subscribe and ring the bell, it'll let you know when I go live. I stream every day on YouTube and Twitch. You can also follow all of my socials down in the description. And if you want to support me in a more financial manner, there's a join button for membership to just 99p to be a member on YouTube, as well as a Patreon, and there's some merch there as well. And hopefully I'll catch you on the next video. Take care.